There are an estimated 6.8 million dogs in Japan. Over 100,000 of them will end up in a municipal pound each year. Because the Japanese government sets aside very little funding for animal care and control, once in the system, dogs have 7 days before being put down. Sadly, due to a traditional cultural stigma of owning a so-called second-hand dog, adoption rates are some of the lowest in the world, and up to 88% of dogs taken to the municipal pound are euthanized yearly. Countless more dogs are simply abandoned and end up breeding in the wild, resulting in an epidemic of untamed feral canines, especially in the rural areas. Many of these wild and abandoned dogs are simply trapped and killed for fear of rabies. Meet Mr. Kyoto Kitaora. For over 2 decades, Mr. Kitaora has dedicated his life to the rescue and rehabilitation of Japan's otherwise unwanted animals. He has traveled all over the country, often risking personal injury, to rescue abused and trapped animals, as well as those at risk of being hunted or captured. Dogs are rehabilitated in Mr. Kitaora's compound, located about 3 hours south of Tokyo in the seaside city of Ito. Here, he trains and cares for rescues, wild and domesticated dogs alike, with the hopes of finding them a loving home. He operates with no support from the government or national advocacy group, only minimal donations and the help of dedicated volunteers. Meet the man that the Japan Times said should be considered for sainthood, Mr. Kyoto Kitaora. On March 11, 2010, an unprecedented 9.0 magnitude earthquake struck 40 miles off the coastline of Japan. The resulting tsunami caused thousands of casualties, billions of dollars worth of damage, and the evacuation of hundreds of thousands of residents around the Fukushima nuclear facility. Thousands of animals, including several hundred pets, were left behind in the evacuation. In the weeks after the disaster, Mr. Kitaora and his brave volunteers risked their own safety by entering zones considered unsafe, in an attempt to rescue as many animals as possible. Their efforts saved the lives of dozens of household pets and farm animals alike. These acts of kindness are nothing new for a man who sacrificed what most would consider a normal life to almost single-handedly care for a virtual wildlife sanctuary of otherwise forgotten animals. Mr. Kitaora provides these often physically and psychologically damaged creatures a chance at life. He administers medical aid, integrates them back into society, and helps find them a new home. Here in 1997, during the taping of a Japanese TV show, an undomesticated rescue acts up on camera, and Mr. Kitaora physically dominates the wild canine, a technique reserved for the toughest of cases. Mr. Kitaora explains that dogs like these take a lot of patience to train and time to gain their trust. The canine must go through an extensive regimen in order to graduate and leave with a new family. However, in this case, after a few months of dedication, Mr. Kitaora found the troubled dog a new home. When asked if it is difficult to live with a newly domesticated animal, the rescue's new companion answered, "Whatever dog or human, it doesn't matter. It's about love." Though the stigma of adopting a pet is waning in Japan, animal rescue organizations, like Mr. Kitaora's Yokohama Dog Rescue, continue to struggle without proper aid and steady funding. Regardless, the Selfless Samaritan continues his crusade to save the animals of Japan and raise the country's awareness of the benefits of adoption.